What up, family? My name is Ice Touch. Today's a big one. Miss Go-To Girl is in the building. In my books, she is the number one woman to put Africa on the map when it comes to entertainment in Canada. For those who don't know, she is the co-host of the number one African radio show on commercial radio in Canada, the African Group Show, which airs every Sunday from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch it online at g987fm.com. You can catch it through their mobile app, G987. I can't remember if it's G987 or if it's G987FM, but look it up, you'll get it. And if you're in the Toronto area, just tune in to G98.7 on the FM dial. So she's the co-host of The Big Show. She's a blogger. She's a promotion aide. She's a publicist. She's a social media manager. And more importantly, she's a great African ambassador. Miss Go-To Girl, honestly, to me, she's really a down-to-earth sister. Okay, part one today. She'll take us through the story of her life. Life that started in a royal family in Ghana, then continued in London, Ontario, where she was able to convince her parents to let her move to the big city, T-Dat. And that's where she basically, navigated in this male-dominated industry, entertainment industry, and to make it to the top where she's at today. Now let's get into her African experience.
Welcome to Chilling with the Diaspora with Ice Touch.
Karibu kwa ushirikiano wa diaspora na Ice Touch.
Káàbọ̀ sí ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn aráàlú òkè pẹ̀lú Ice Touch.
Wei Malamundeko na a Chilling with the Diaspora elongo na Ice Touch.
Akwaba, Enuanom, Yembrefie, Ice Touch, Kasapa, Diaspora, Yentie.
Barkanmu da wannan lokaci inda muke shakatawa da jama'ar mu da ke ƙetare tare da Ice Touch.
Malam ichiling ni diaspora loni Ice Touch.
Ndị be anyị ekele m unu. Ndị nọ na obodo Igbo ana m ekele m unu. Aha m bụ Ice Touch.
Sanbonani, siyalamukela ku Chilling with the Diaspora with Ice Touch.
Miss Go-To Girl.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fantastic. More than that, I'm honored and really happy to have you on.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
As we all know, you're really a role model to a lot of people out there, but let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Who are you?
Miss Go-To Girl, a Jill of all trades, if you will. I love media and entertainment, so I would consider myself, a social influencer, a radio personality, an entertainment host, blogger. That's who I am.
I was about to ask, who are you not? Because you basically, all over the place. And definitely we'll get to share all your social media. You're on Facebook, you're on Google+, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and obviously LinkedIn. But you know what? Let's just step back a little bit. Tell us about, where you were born, raised, your background, you're bringing. See, I'm getting so excited, I'm forgetting the basics. You know what I mean?
No, I feel you. But originally born in Ghana, okay? So I came back into Canada a little over 1 year old. Okay. And I grew up in London, Ontario. And that, of course, was a very interesting experience, to say the least. Okay. But yes, very proud Ghanaian Canadian.
Let me just jump in and ask you where in Ghana, because Ghana is not a city, right? It's a big country. So tell us where in Ghana, which maybe, your city or region and all that you represent.
Of course. So I represent Accra, the capital of Ghana, and in London, Ontario, where I grew up. Southwestern Ontario, that is. So not London, England, for those of you who might get it confused, because everyone always assumes, London, England. No.
Exactly.
London, Ontario.
Okay. And in Ghana, all I know about Ghana is really the Ashantis, but where are you in terms of region and all that stuff? What's home or the village or however you want to call it?
Well, for me, as you know, Ghanaian Canadian, my parents are both Ashanti people.
Okay.
And, but my mom, she grew up in Kumasi, which is about maybe 4 hours from the capital city.
Have you been to those places?
I have. I'm so lucky and gracious to have had that experience of going back home to Ghana. So absolutely, I've been back home.
We'll get back to it shortly, I'm sure. Okay, so raised in London, Ontario, what was it like? What was it like, Ghanaian young lady in Ontario? What was life like growing up?
Amazing. My parents did a very good job of making sure that we had the best of both worlds. So growing up in London, we immersed ourselves in all the activities that the other kids were doing. So, I went to summer camp and we did snow activities, tobogganing, snowboarding, all of that. And, I had a lot of friends, Polish friends, Italian friends, Portuguese friends.
Wow.
At the time of me growing up, there weren't a lot of Africans. Mm-hmm. As time went on, they started to come over. But I did have some friends and family, in that area that were, Ghanaian or Nigerian or what have you. But it was a really fun experience. We had a great time. And in terms of the Ghanaian side, my parents made sure that they always reminded us of who we are. We ate Ghanaian food. We played Ghanaian music. They had an African association back when I was growing up. So the members of this association would meet up a couple times in the year. Okay. And that was something that I always looked forward to because although, I'm going to school with predominantly, white people, there were times where we had family gatherings or these African association gatherings where we were always reminded, of who we are and how rich and how beautiful our culture is.
Right.
So a lot of really great memories from that.
So I think you mentioned that there was not a lot of, say African around. What were your best memories? And just give us a couple of examples just to get a flavor of what your best memories as a youngster, again, in London, Ontario.
I would say when the family members from Toronto, Scarborough, and Brampton would come and actually visit us. Those are some of my best memories because, I'm getting to see my cousins and my aunts and uncles that, you typically see a couple times in the year because there's, everyone has jobs and school and the 2-hour distance, right? Mm-hmm. So all of us coming together and, the food and just playing with, your cousins, like you totally look forward to that. That's like the highlight of all highlights. and I'll never forget that, my mom getting me and my brother dressed up and, we're playing games and watching movies and pranking each other. Those are some really, really amazing memories.
Okay, so family moments and get together. And on the flip side, can you think of sometimes we were like, I have a better question for you. Can you think of a moment or, an example of a situation where you felt a little bit funny, when people found out you were from Ghana? It could be a stereotype. All African, unfortunately, or most African at least, there are stereotypes associated with either the continent or the countries. Can you share at least a moment?
Oh, absolutely. I remember in high school, I think I might have been in grade 10, and I was trying to explain this whole concept of my father's father, so my grandfather, being a king. Mm-hmm. See, at the time, we were younger, and a lot of these kids didn't really understand what I meant, so they teased me like, oh, so you're a princess, but, each town or community, right, would have somebody that they would appoint, like a king, right, or a chief. So imagine being like 15, 16 years old trying to explain this concept, and then, these kids are taking you way too seriously and assuming you're trying to say that, like, you're royal, like, really, yes, of course I'm royal, but at that age, they're not understanding what I'm saying. So that was one of those moments in high school. It was at lunch, and I'm trying to explain, my grandfather, is this prominent man, and coming from such a rich culture and this and that. And, you know, they teased me for it, right? I laugh about it now as I look back.
Right.
Just, you know, just that lack of understanding or that ignorance that, you know, they're young, they don't know. But
right.
those things I'll never forget.
Actually, that's a good point. Let's just assume that I'm one of those kids. I don't know much about, you know, the royalty in Ghana. Can you touch on and educate us a little bit in terms of what it is? You know, I'm sure there's a lot of stereotype, but I'm looking at you to sort of clean it up and give us maybe not a book on it, but just a rundown of what it is. Like, what does it mean being, you know, a king?
It's, you know, a leader. You're almost like a leader of the pack. You're a leader of a town or a community. You set example. And in a way, you almost set trends. And it's a way of preserving, you know, our long heritage and our long history, right? So if we don't have these customs and these traditions that we keep sort of continuing,
right,
it all kind of gets lost. So it's a beautiful thing to have, you know, a chief or a king of an area and, you know, keeping traditions and events and, you know, celebrating certain holidays with this sort of leader. It's very, very important. And I'm sure other regions in the continent of Africa have such people or have such cultures. You know, we're all similar one way or another.
Okay.
But I guess that would be the easiest way to sort of break it down. And
that's dope. How do you make it happen? You know, so many miles or kilometers away from Ghana, almost born and raised, but let's say raised in Canada. How do you feel? How do you connect with all the royalty, all the, you know, the heritage and all that good stuff from the snow, pretty much?
I think it's asking questions and continuing the conversation. Like if there's something I don't know or I don't understand, or I need like some embellishing, you know, you just, you know, call my mom or go to my mom's house or like call my dad and just ask. Like it starts there. If they don't know, then you move on to your aunts and your uncles, right?
Okay.
Their siblings, their cousins, your cousins. And okay. you have to be interested. Like if you really want to learn about your culture, learn about a culture, you got to ask questions and you have to like open up that forum for discussion, right? Because then that's how we learn and then that's how we teach our kids, you know, in the next generation.
And that's actually really, really interesting, at least for me, because, you know, sometimes this stuff, you know, when you're overseas, you deal with, you know, the daily life, you deal with the stereotypes, and then sometimes you may not be exposed to it, have been exposed to it. So what you're saying is basically pretty much you have to look inside of you and then look for answers, pretty much. Same thing when you're looking for a job, you know what I mean? He doesn't come to you, go get it.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, in terms of your involvement in the community, you just touched on it earlier. Has that involvement changed over the years? Because I'm sure, you know, when you're younger, you follow a little bit your family, whatever they, you know, wherever they take you to. What about now? What does it look like, involvement in the Ghanaian community for now?
It's definitely changed. You know, growing up in London, I knew I wanted to move to Toronto to go to school. You know, I went to Ryerson. And when I started in entertainment, I came from the mainstream urban side before I even crossed over into the African entertainment side. So it took some time. And before I actually crossed over, I just started going to the African parties and the African events in the community. Okay. And with that, I was able to meet the promoters, meet the DJs, you know, meet the fellow hosts and MCs, and really just be around and absorb what was happening. Mm-hmm. And once I felt in my heart that I was ready to switch over, then I reached out to these promoters and these DJs and let them know, like, look, a lot of them already knew what I was doing on the urban side. Mm-hmm. And so for those that didn't, you know, I would just talk to them, let them know what my skill set was, what my interests were, and they're very open. So as I kind of made my way over onto that side, you know, that's when the African Groove Show with G98.7 opportunity came up. Mm-hmm. And that show, that's when the gates kind of just like flung open. And that's when I was, you know, officially immersed in the community. So very, very, very grateful that I had these people willing to let me in.
Right.
And, you know, I always felt kind of different and unique because even my name, right? So Miss Go-To Girl, yes, but my government name, Tatiana King, it doesn't sound Ghanaian. Yep. And then when you hear the way that I speak, again, you don't hear Ghanaian. So I thought it was going to be a more challenging experience for me to kind of break over onto that side.
Right.
But they embraced me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, so let's step back because you touched on a lot of points that I want to understand better. Okay, first of all, you mentioned prior to being involved in the in sort of the African community, you were already in that industry. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So what were you, if you don't mind touching on, what was that about? What were you doing? And, how did you get in that?
So when I was finishing up school, my last year of Ryerson, we all had to do internships. So I did an internship with a social and entertainment influencer who basically introduced me into the world of, the entertainment industry from an urban perspective in Toronto. And I then started volunteering with Flow 93.5, Universal Music Canada, and other promoters in the mainstream who basically taught me everything that I know. There's a number of people, Del Seven Shades, DJ Power, and the list goes on of people just help me navigate my way through. So a lot of volunteering, a lot of networking, and just being at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And what I was doing basically was I was learning promotion, the art of networking, the art of building relationships. And that kind of then turned into me starting the blog, MissGoToGirl.com, right? So that's kind of how the whole thing started. Promotion, PR, publicity, hosting events, promoting events, and doing a lot of coordination with these promoters.
Okay, so just a couple comments. One, I just remembered, if I'm in, say, in Asia right now or in Europe, I don't know where London is. London is 2 hours away from Toronto, west of Toronto, is that right?
So, southwest.
Okay, perfect.
Toronto, 2 hours.
And number 2, Ryerson is a university downtown Toronto, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Now, going back to what you just alluded to, what drove you? So why did you, is it something that was inside of you to, wanting to meet these people, wanting to be in that arena, or do you have a specific target or model? Like what's up with that?
In terms of the mainstream, or when I crossed over into the African side?
Mainstream first.
Mainstream. Well, I wanted to. I don't know. It's so funny how perception is so strong. Like perception, what you think of something, and if you really, really believe it, because seeing is believing. If you believe it and you see it, I believe for me that it was fun and it was interesting and it was entertaining and it was like lights, camera, action, and I just needed to be a part of it. There was just something alluring about it, and my curiosity sort of led to me, kind of going for it. Like, obviously you have to be very confident and sure of yourself to enter into a marketplace that you don't know very much about. And when you're young, people will try you and try to take advantage of you and sway you, but you have to be very, very strong. And thankfully that strength, all roots back to my mom and dad and that strong Ghanaian, upbringing.
Yep.
But you have to be strong. So I was strong and I was curious and I asked questions and I wrote things down. But that mainstream entertainment urban lifestyle, there was something about it that I just loved. It just looked fun. That's how it started. It just looked fun, right?
That's a good way to start.
Right? And the fun turned into business. Now, when you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work at that point.
Yeah.
So it seemed like, okay, like this is fun. This is interesting. Oh, I can make money off this. Oh, I can build my name off this.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Right.
So talking about names, what did the name? I saw 2, Miss Go-To Girl, obviously, and the Spice of Africa. Where does those names come from?
Miss Go-To Girl was a name that it just kind of happened. I don't know. I think I positioned myself to be a young woman who was resourceful.
Right.
So if somebody would call or email me and ask me, oh, I need a stylist for the shoot, or do you know a really good photographer? Or, back when I was promoting with Flow, Right. 93.5. Oh, do you know someone that works at Flow that I can, get into the rotation with my music? Or when I was with Universal Music Canada, like, when's the release date for such and such album? Like, all of these questions would just come at me, because the more and more you're out and about and you're telling people who you are and what you're doing, people will start, asking, and then you build these relationships, and then people start to believe you and trust you, right? So they call you. Okay. And so that's sort of where Miss Go-To Girl came from. Somebody, I wish I could remember who the person was, but someone said, "You're like the go-to girl." Thank you. And then I said, at the time I didn't really have a brand name. Right. And I said, "Miss Go-To Girl, I think I'm going to run with that." And I ran with it.
Okay. What about the Spice of Africa?
The Spice of Africa, it's funny that it's a tag that I created almost 2 years ago. So with the African Groove Show, the show that I host Sundays from 12 to 2 with MC Bondé. Okay. MC Bondé had a tag. So he had MC Bondé, the Voice of Africa. Right. Another very well-known MC in our community, MC Ebone, the Voice of the Party. He had a tag. So a lot of my my peers and my fellow MCs and hosts had tags. And I realized I don't have a tag, but there's a word that I always use to describe things that are hot. Right? Yep. Spicy.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, spicy. And then I sat down and I was writing on a notepad, like almost 2 years ago, these tags, like these different names. And the one that stuck out to me was the Spice of Africa. So I went to the studio the following Sunday, and me and Bondé are doing show prep for our show. And I ran the tag by him. And he's like, "Yeah, that's hot. That's hot." And I was already feeling it. I just needed somebody else to tell me that they were feeling it.
Right. That's the stamp.
I'd already run it by my parents and my friends, and they all loved it. Okay. So he gave that final stamp, and we basically put it out there on the airwaves that day. So it stuck.
And those two names, in my opinion, they're really nice, short, powerful, catchy. And it really, as you just alluded to, it really captures who you are or who you represent. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
You touched on a couple more things I wanted to talk about. What was your breakthrough? How did you get that gig at the radio station? And tell us what the radio station is. We in Toronto, Canada, we know it's number one out here, but say, for folks overseas, if you want to describe the station, more importantly, the show and what the show is about.
I think the breakthrough for me was being at the right place at the right time. Right. And as I mentioned earlier, the confidence, which is very important. Even if you don't believe it in the moment, you just have to pretend, because that's what captures someone's heart. That's what captures someone's mind when you exude that confidence. So somebody had referred me for another role, right? Which was a sales role within the radio station, which I still do to this day. But when I sat in front of Mr. Gordon, Fitzroy Gordon, who's the owner, CEO, president of G98.7 FM, he was sort of intrigued and blown away with the way that I was able to express myself and my story and the experience that I had. Right. And he and I were speaking about, how the African Groove Show needed more support in terms of sponsorship, right? So I agreed to come on as a specialty sales account executive, helping acquire business, not just for our show, but for the radio station as a whole. Right. And the African Groove Show at the time was being hosted by MC Bondé for the first year on his own. Right. And Mr. Gordon was looking for, a second voice, almost like a co-anchor, another perspective. And he sort of threw it out there, would you want to host the show? It was just that simple. It was just that simple. And, I went to school, Ryerson University in Toronto, for radio and television arts. So it was totally up my alley, and I had already gone to school for it. So it was just like the perfect combination, of business and absolute pleasure for me too. But, being able to really exploit my skills in a very positive way. And, it's 5 years now, and the African Groove Show, we're doing very well, and we've had so many wonderful guests. Yep. We've had athletes and actors and musicians and a lot of these top Nollywood stars, and it's been such a blessing. But the thing is that you have to be very, very confident. Even on those days when you don't feel confident, you just have to push. And I think that's what got me in front of Mr. Gordon for me to even be able to get that opportunity.
So I'm urging my sisters out there to take notes. Confidence, confidence, confidence. That's the key thing. Now, how was your family? I guess, were they supportive? Because I'm just going back again to the stereotype where, African parents, they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, all that stuff. Were they supportive? What were the feedback from your, your friends and family, your inner circle?
I think it's interesting because when I was leaving London, I know my dad was nervous about me going to Ryerson. It wasn't about going to university. He wanted me to go to university. In fact, I was offered a partial scholarship to go to the University of Western Ontario to the Media Information Techniculture program. But there was something about Toronto, and I really wanted to go. So initially, it was a little bit of a struggle, but, he finally came around and let me go to school. Now, when I started showing interest in entertainment, they were very supportive from the beginning. They didn't fully understand it, right? They didn't fully understand exactly what it entails and all the hours and the networking and the late nights and all these things. But I always made sure that I communicated what I did. Yep. And I always made sure that when I was creating an event, doing something, I always let them know. I would send them like the flyer, or I would send them just some information. I jump on the call and let them know what I'm doing. And I think that really, really helped, because sometimes people need to almost be, how do you say?
Spoon-fed?
Or even almost brainwashed. Like, you almost have to sometimes when you keep saying things over and over, or you keep talking about something that you're doing over and over, then they tend to sort of open up because they're like, oh, wow, this is serious. This is important to this person. This is becoming their life. Right. But if your parents are your parents or friends or family, whoever it is, if they are 100% non-supportive, then you have to sort of turn that volume down, right? Because you can't function with the negativity, and you go forward. But if they're kind of giving you a hard time, but they're still a little bit receptive, keep feeding them the information. Keep letting them know what you're doing. You just have to, because over time they will respect you, they will respect what you're doing, and they'll appreciate it. So that's what helps me.
That's actually very interesting, because And I like it. I like it, going to them and then feeding them with the information. And as you mentioned, looking at pretty much, brainwashing them versus just going away from them and, being scared that, hey, if pops off mom find out about it, it may not be good. So definitely good advice from you there. Now you are a public figure. How do you manage public life versus private life?
I would say at this point, very well, only because I've had a couple of years to really master it. Now, if we go back to the beginning, it was a little challenging because everything I wanted to do, I wanted to always incorporate my friends into the entertainment stuff. So if there was a party that I was promoting or a party that I was hosting, and I know I haven't seen my girls in a couple of weeks, I would always try to bring them into the fold, right? So I would ask for extra comps, extra free tickets or whatever, so I can sort of bring them along so they didn't feel, either left out. And sometimes that conflicted too, because sometimes they just wanted to have a girls' night at home, and just chill and have a glass of wine or whatever. But for me, I was so determined to break through and to really make a name for myself. So I wanted the business and pleasure, and sometimes it backfired. So I had to really learn a way to do both, but literally not at the same time. So now I'm a lot better. So now it'll be like, say, for example, last November, me and Bonde hosted the Akon concert in Hamilton. Right. And there was another event happening later late that night. Mm-hmm. So instead of me trying to be in two places at once, I went and hosted the Akon gig. And then I just made plans the next day, for a brunch. And that comes with experience. It comes with age and maturity and all of those things. You can have both. You can do both. If it's important enough to you, you'll figure it out and you'll do it.
So I've always wondered, when you're a public figure, how do you manage, say, family life? Mm-hmm. If you wanted to, keep your, husband, kids outside of the public world. Is that even possible?
It is to an extent. Like for me, for many of those years of me building and growing, either I'd be single or I would be casually dating somebody, but I didn't really bring them into the fold, and I wouldn't really mention the person, and you wouldn't really see images of the person in my social media at all.
Right.
Up until recently, I've been a little more open to sharing a little bit of my personal life just through, Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, things like that. But, I don't use names. Like I'm in a relationship, and I basically will post things here and there, and I'll go out to events with him here or there. But, I never put his name out there. People who listen to the radio show know that he's British Nigerian. People know that I grew up in London, Ontario, and that my dad is in and out of Ghana because he's an entrepreneur. And they know certain things because it's part of the storyline. Like when we're on radio, we're telling a story and we're giving you a visual and an audio, right? Because you're listening to us. So there's certain things you have to put out there because it helps build you as a personality or as a public figure, right?
Yep.
But you don't have to put everything out there.
I'm sure you don't. Right? Definitely, this is not the Kardashian or anything like that.
I mean, unless someone, comes forward and offers me a reality show, that's a whole different thing, and I would totally do that. But I think you just have to sort of respect your family, respect your partner, respect your kids. And there's a line, and you should know yourself, and you should know how far you can and cannot go.
Right. Draw the line pretty much. Interesting that you'll be, sort of interesting in doing a reality show, but I'll leave it out for now. I want to focus on your female experience. So you just mentioned your drive, your motivation, your confidence, all that good stuff. Is there anything or any highlight throughout the years where you could look back and say, okay, this happened because I was a female? May it be good or bad? Just curious to know the female perspective or the female experience, or is it more like, it doesn't matter. If I was a man, I would have had the same experience.
No, to be completely honest, it's very different. Okay. To be a male in the entertainment industry and a woman in the entertainment industry. And this platform that I have today with you is absolutely amazing because I'm everything I'm saying is completely honest and factual. I think it's harder for us, but we as Black women and then Black women in the entertainment industry, there's a rush right now. Like we're all kind of trying to come through, and it's a little easier, but it's still challenging because you have to compete with the men, and it's a male dominated arena, right? I think there have been experiences I've had in the past with promoters, trying to shortchange, not pay as much as they would pay, the male counterpart, or try to slick their way out of paying. There have been, moments where they position opportunities in a way they almost want to date you or flirt with you or whatever it is. And you have to sort of fight your way through, right? And if you just fall in, then you're gone. Like you're lost. Like you can't, you have a choice. You can fall in line according to them and you go that route and build your success, or you can go the other route that I chose, which is you fight through it. And, not every gig or opportunity is worth it if you're sacrificing your dignity and your pride and if you can't sleep at night. It's very important to have integrity and to push through. And if an opportunity isn't sitting well in your spirit, in your mind, and don't do it. Leave it alone. So a lot of times I'm happy to walk away from things.
Well. Very interesting, very insightful. And honestly, it's great to realize that our sisters are really killing it with confidence. That's really the key concept that transpired from this first part of the life of Miss Go-To Girl.
That's a wrap. Till next time.